Strive presents. Oh, got to get ready.
Laptop. Plant. That looks nice there.
Ooh, cookies, yum.
Notebook. Microphone, webcam, and coffee, of course.
A video podcast where deaf, hard of hearing, and disabled creatives and their allies chat about experiences, best practice, and the future of the arts. The Green Room.
Hi, welcome to the Green Room. This is a weekly interview video podcast, and it's organized by the Strive Collective, which is a collaboration between two theatre companies, Deaf Hearing Ensemble and Hot Coal Productions. So we're working together to create Strive, and we're producing this project, The Green Room. My name is Erin Hutching. This is my sign name. I'm a member of the Deaf Hearing Ensemble. I'm a performer, a writer, interpreter, producer. I have a lot of hats. I will be, I'm describing myself because some of the people will be receiving this as an audio podcast and some will be receiving it as a video podcast. So let me tell you, I am a white woman. I'm about 5'8" tall. I'm blonde, slightly dyed, have to admit. I'm sitting in front of a grey screen. I'm wearing a blue top, a navy blue top. I live in London, but I'm originally from New Zealand. So I'm kind of a soft New Zealander, a soft Kiwi, because I have an English influence. You're not hearing my voice, however. I'm using British Sign Language, so the voice you're hearing is the voice of an interpreter, Kyra Pollitt. Kyra, when you're ready, could you describe yourself, please? Hi, folks. I am a white, late 50s woman with silver hair, very short, a very locked down haircut. So I'm kind of relieved you can't see that too clearly. I am sitting in front of a blue screen. I am wearing a green vintage checked jacket and a black jumper. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Kyra. So the Green Room is running over 12 weeks, and each week we'll be interviewing the most exciting people, deaf, hard of hearing, disabled, and diverse artists. Also some non-disabled industry allies across the UK and internationally. The Green Room is aiming to celebrate best practice in the theatre and the arts world. We're aiming to spotlight unsung heroes in the arts. And also we're looking to inspire others to keep access and diversity front and centre now and going forwards. We publish these podcasts every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. You can find details on our website and on YouTube. You can also listen to these as an audio podcast available on the Strive website. So you can join in with the conversation if you like on social media using the hashtag #thegreenroom_UK and share your thoughts, make comments, and join in the conversation. Okay, let's get this started. If you're wondering why it's called the Green Room, let me tell you that in theatres, there's always a specific room where artists, directors, performers, technicians, theatre staff can just sit, relax, unwind, have a cup of tea, eat their dinner, chat. And this is our online virtual green room. So we're not looking to create here a formal interview. This is really a chat. And this week, we've got two exciting people in the green room. I'm really, really excited about meeting them both. Deaf Hearing Ensemble is a deaf hearing theatre company in the UK. And we're looking to chat today to two people who are running a very similar organisation in New Zealand called Equal Voices Arts, which in New Zealand Sign Language is signed Equal Voices Arts. So first I'd like to ask Laura, sorry, this is your sign name. I've got the wrong sign name. I'm seeing the name Laura on your screen, and I'm actually wanting to invite Rachel, Rachel, to just audio describe yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit more about yourself. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, hello. My name is Rachel. That's my sign name. I'm wearing a white top. I've got blonde hair. I've got blue eyes, and I've got lovely blue mascara on as well. It really sets my eyes off. I wear glasses, just my eyes are not that good. So without glasses on, I can't see a thing. So I definitely have to put my glasses on all the time. So I have glasses on. The background behind me is a wardrobe on one side. And I'm sitting next to Laura. You might be wondering why my sign name is as it is. This harks back to the 90s and a hairstyle that I used to often wear with a hairband and a sort of puffy bit at the front. I mean, I don't kind of wear that anymore. I'm older, and yeah, not looking the same, but my sign name has stuck, so there it is. So what do I do? So I am a New Zealand Sign Language consultant. I of course work at Equal Voices, and I also work in the production side of things on projects, dramaturgy for Equal Voices for the deaf community. So we have a New Zealand sign, which I've just done, which is Kia ora.
Oh, that's for Aotearoa.
Oh, sorry, that's my fault.
That's all right.
Yeah. Let me just, I've got my pronunciations written here. Aotearoa. I don't know if I said it right, I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we obviously watch their performances, we watch the work that they do, and take influence from that. So one of the things that of course is quite key to me is my consultancy work in terms of language. It's not just obviously what you see on stage, but how you use the language as well. And I work as a tutor supporting deaf children in New Zealand. And I also work with the government as well. I work with the Ministry of Social Development. And now I will hand over to Laura.
Thank you, Rachel. That is a good point. You're quite right. Thank you. Rachel, let's introduce your interpreter, Rebekah. Rebekah, could you audio describe yourself?
Hello, my name is Rebekah. My sign name is Rebekah. Today I'm wearing a black cardigan, a black t-shirt. It's got sparkly bits on it. I'm a black woman. I've got curly, puffy hair, and the background that I'm on today is a green screen.
Thank you, Rebekah. So now let's turn to you, Laura.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura. I am super excited to be here today. I'll describe myself first. I am a white lady. I have blonde, scruffy hair. I have blue eyes that look a little bit tired this morning. I got woken up very early by my small child. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I always wear black. Theatre clothes, I don't know. Maybe I'm scruffy. Again, I think it's small children around as well. Black hides all of the hand marks. And yeah, as Rachel said, we're sat in front of my white wardrobe because we thought it might be probably the most professional space in my house available for this interview, and the least distracting. And I get to be sat next to Rachel, which is wonderful. My sign name is Laura, which is like the flick from your thumb and your index finger
Laura
off your eye. And because way back in the day, I was given this name when I had bright eyes, lots of energy. And like I said this morning, maybe that's not quite the same as I am representing here today. But yeah, I shall try and bring some morning energy. So I'm Laura. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you introduce your interpreter, Anna? Anna, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, hi. My name is Anna, and my sign name is this. So you pretend you're rolling up your sleeves from your wrist to your elbow, one arm at a time. I'm a white woman. I'm around 5'7.5". The half is very important. Today I'm wearing dark green top, and my background is light green. So I'm really focusing on the green today.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So now that we've met everyone, I guess we're ready to start our chat. You might notice that we're using two different sign languages today, and that's because Rachel is a native New Zealand sign language user. I'll be using BSL, and so will Anna, the interpreter. So throughout the conversation, you might notice that the interpreters interrupt for clarification. And that's because Rachel very kindly has agreed to adapt her native sign language to British Sign Language, but it might be possible that there are moments of incomprehension. So if that happens, we might get an interruption here and there. Okay. I kind of want to start with a question for both of you, Rachel and Laura. You work with Equal Voices Arts, this company. If you met somebody who had never seen one of your shows, how would you describe the kind of work you do? What's your elevator pitch?
I will start. We make work that's very physically bold, very visually engaging. We place NZSL on stage with spoken English with equal status. That's the most important thing we do. So in all our productions, NZSL and English are not directly translated, but they're given the same priority on stage. So yeah, we say that they're explored on an equal, although not identical basis. So not everything that is signed is spoken, not everything that is spoken is signed, but overall, the dramaturgies weave together to provide an accessible experience for both deaf and hearing audiences. And that way we can play with the narratives for each community and respect their very different cultural experiences and diversity. And we feel that this placement of language also puts forward a strong political statement of equality. And our work wants to see, or our work aims to put deaf stories on stage, deaf characters on stage, and performing in their first language. We explore deaf culture, deaf worldview. Yeah, so that's kind of Equal Voices. What else to say? With the NZSL inspires the physical score and the choreography for our work, very movement orientated, kind of exploring sign dance theatre as well. So we've developed a theatrical language where we tell our story through physical theatre, and it's inspired by and can take structure from some of the conventions of sign language. But we love making a shared communicative and a shared imaginative space that both deaf and hearing audiences can access as well. So we play with all of these ideas in our work. We'd like to craft worlds with our hands and our bodies. We play with visual language, VB. We play a lot, really. We play with bodies in the space a lot. We always start with the body, and we always start with NZSL. Other languages follow.
Oh, sorry, we nearly lost you there. Sorry, we've got a really awkward table set up here. Yeah, I think
I thought that was an earthquake. I know New Zealand's prone to earthquakes.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm from Christchurch, so I know that you're in a different part of the island, right?
So yeah, we do work with the physical side of it, and the visual side is also very strong. We don't actually rely on anything written. We actually put that to one side and work with the physicality of the language and look at how that can craft the work. It's really key that we use NZSL and that we make sure that we keep true to the roots of the community and the culture here. So the visual aspect is key. It's very strong, and that's a big feature of our work, and working in collaboration with those two elements as well.
Wow. Everything you've told me has just made me feel that that's so similar to the deaf hearing ensemble, you know, I mean, the way you work. And I know that there are other companies in the UK doing something similar too. You've mentioned, Laura, you mentioned, you talked about sign dance there. And I know that you started some time ago when you were 17 in a sign dance company, right? Common Ground? And that you learnt to sign as a result of that work. And then I think after that, you established Equal Voices Arts. And I think I'm right in thinking that was set up in Britain in the first place, in the UK. So could you talk us through how you established the company?
Yeah, so yeah, Common Ground, that was my first professional acting gig at the tender age of 17, which was very exciting. I was actually, I was in a youth theatre show in Manchester, and I'd had some issues with my hearing. I had a really bad ear infection and couldn't hear too well at the time. And I think the choreographer noticed me kind of stood on stage, couldn't really follow what was going on, and she started signing to me. She's Bsl Consultant, the choreographer for Common Ground. And yeah, so I met up with the company, and I got really lucky, and they invited me to go on tour with them. So wow, that was amazing. And yeah, I got to learn from deaf artists, which is just mind-blowing, really. I feel so lucky. So incredibly privileged. And I was with Common Ground for about 8 or 9 years on and off. And in the meantime, whilst I was working with them, I trained as a physiotherapist. So I was always really interested in the body as a main kind of site of performance. So yeah, I kind of straddled working as a physiotherapist and working with Common Ground. And Common Ground worked with a deaf-led company, deaf hearing artists, often collaborated with disabled artists, non-disabled artists. So yeah, this was the culture I was kind of brought up in my formative years, rehearsing in Liverpool back in the day. And when I left Common Ground, I set up Equal Voices Arts because I was getting asked to run lots of community-based projects, mostly for young disabled, non-disabled, deaf and hearing young people. And so the roots of the company are really in community work, which I loved, and I still love. And then this is where I get confused with chronology. So yeah, the company started work in England. And then I did master study. I did a PhD, which was brought together kind of physiotherapy, the kind of neuroscience, psychophysical awareness, performance, body fluency, etc., etc. Did the PhD and had a baby at the same time, which was possibly not to be recommended. And
you're very brave.
it was slightly a crazy time. I remember I was 8.5 months pregnant when I handed in my thesis. But good timing. Good timing. Managed that deadline. And yeah, well, I had this little baby, and I thought, time to look for maybe a job that's regular pay after years of being a freelance artist. And yeah, I saw this job that it was the University of Waikato theatre lecturer. So I thought, oh, why not? I've done lots of teaching at universities around and conservatoires around the UK. So, oh, well, I'll try. Never in a million years thought that I would get it. And they flew me here for an interview, which was amazing. So I left my little baby and my husband in England, flew off, solo journey, exciting. And then I remember I was just driving about an hour away from where the university is, this beautiful little coastal town of Raglan in the North Island on the Never East Shred of West Coast. And I was just stood at the top of Naranui Beach, this beautiful beach. And I got a phone call. The university saying, you've got the job. So I FaceTimed my husband, said, they've offered me this job. What do we do? And he said, oh my God, show me what you can see. And I showed him what I could see, and he could see waves, and he's a surfer. So he said, let's toss a coin, babe. Heads, we're going. So we tossed a coin. Heads it was. Off we go. And 3 months later, we were here, which was quite amazing. And I'm so happy that I got to, come and have this amazing adventure. So yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. So you moved to New Zealand, right? And I understand the move because actually at the same time, I grew up in New Zealand. So I moved from New Zealand to the UK. So I know how disorientating that can be. New life, new job, meeting new people. It's really overwhelming. So why did you decide that you wanted to set up Equal Voices Arts, New Zealand edition? How did that come about?
Well, when I arrived here, I really missed the deaf community. It was such a huge part of my life. And I missed working with deaf actors. Deaf actors are masters of storytelling. No one understands telling stories through the body like deaf performers. And I missed that. And I arrived here and I was, looking and seeing where I might find some people that I could go meet and introduce myself to. And yeah, I couldn't find any little hubbubs of activity going on. So I thought maybe I could set something up and at least meet members of my local deaf community. So we started the same routes as in England, just started through the community really. And I kind of, went through various organizations just to consult with the deaf communities here. Maybe they don't want a strange English person turning up trying to let's do some theatre. But actually, no, they were so warm, so welcoming, and the resounding message from the consultations were, yeah, we'd love to do some of that. So we set up a workshop in Hamilton, and loads of people came, like 18, 20 people.
Yeah. Oh, this is the sign for Hamilton.
Yeah. Why is that the sign? Do you know?
Okay, so this goes because of the rugby team, the chief kind of rugby team, basically. He's got a very large arm and hand, and so that's very recognizable. So we do that. Hamilton.
Okay. So is that how the two of you met, in the workshop that you'd established? Is that where you first met?
Yeah.
So, okay, coming to you then, Rachel. I know that you are very experienced in education as a tutor of New Zealand Sign Language as well. So had you always wanted to get involved in theatre, or was it something that just you just got involved in because of Equal Voices, or?
So yes, I do work in the educational arena, and that's what I've done for the majority of my time. I absolutely love working with deaf children and actually giving them the opportunity to, you know, experience New Zealand Sign Language. But in terms of working in the community at this workshop is kind of where we met. So my husband and I went over to this workshop. You know, we were quite keen to kind of step our foot into the theatre waters. We hadn't done anything like that before, and there'd been nothing like that that happened here in New Zealand. So Sean, this is his sign name, Sean, you know, walked in, and of course Equal Voices was there. So, you know, I had work commitments, so I couldn't actually attend. I had some work commitments, so I kind of was in.
We have the same sign, commitment, yeah.
I was like, I want to go to this theatre workshop, but I've just started this new job, and so I've got this, I have to be kind of committed to that, unfortunately. But yeah, my heart was actually kind of in the theatre workshop. So that show, The End of My Hands, was to do with the oppression that people in the deaf community had experienced in students' language as well. And we had lots of obviously performers that were in that as well. So there were a total of 6 performers in that. So Sean, he kind of made the link with Equal Voices.
I would love just to add in a little bit about Sean. Sean Fahey, surname Fahey, walked into this community theatre workshop, and I have never seen an actor like him in my life. He looked like he trained at Le Coq in France, the famous theatre school. Yeah. His movement was stunning. Charisma, energy, engagement. Oh yeah, this man was just like, and yeah, he blew us all away. And he wasn't the only one in the room that was excellent. There was so much talent in the room. So yeah, for the first production, we cast 4 deaf actors, and Rachel had my eye on Rachel as well, but she was committed with work. So she thought, I'm going to do the work thing and let Sean go and be a superstar, which is what happened for the first and second show. So we cast Sean in the second show as well that we did for Equal Voices, that went on to tour internationally. I'll put it in, I'll let you.
So the second show,
Salonica.
Okay.
Sign is.
So Laura asked me to come on board as the New Zealand Sign Language consultant on that, and it was to provide
NZSL consultation.
Okay.
So she was in rehearsal in Liverpool?
In Liverpool, yeah.
Is that the right sign, Liverpool?
It is, yep, Liverpool, that's the sign.
No, if I had it the right way around, sorry, I was trying to remember.
Well done, well done, that's amazing, great.
And so, yeah, it was a small tour that was just kind of in the north of the country, north of England. And then we...
Sorry to interrupt, but I was gutted because it didn't come to London. There were no London performances, and so I missed it, and I was just so gutted.
I know, it's just because all of the time was so tight. We only had 2 weeks, so we didn't have time to come anywhere further south. We wanted to, but we couldn't, and it was my first time kind of touching foot in the UK, which was a phenomenal experience in itself. It was such a culture shock. And I said to Laura, oh my goodness, I want to go home. I'm not used to all of this. It was so different, but yeah, you know, all of the history and the heritage. New Zealand just kind of, yeah, I suppose we're a bit kind of smaller, and we kind of don't have the same level of history that you guys have. So it was just, everything was amazing. A beautiful country. Anyway, So we went to Serbia, and we went
Belgrade.
to Belgrade, which was, again, phenomenal experience. Such a big deaf community there. The audience was absolutely packed. And I just felt like we really connected with them. It was just such a natural connection. So then, yes, we returned, and we returned to Montenegro, thank you. So yeah, it was down by the sea there. Again, we met a lot of deaf people there as well, so many deaf people, and it was such a surprise to see how many people were interested in the theatre show that we're putting on. It really kind of made waves. And then we went to...
Met Denise Armstrong.
Oh, sorry, we went to meet Denise. And again, that was another phenomenal experience. It was really, we were just soaking up every single thing that we could from her. And my time there, you know, it was more looking at how can we explore different ideas from different perspectives. It was very inspiring and definitely opened my mind to a lot of things. So it was also looking at the language as well, you know, comparing things and just seeing where things blended and where things melded together between BSL and New Zealand Sign Language as well. So when we finished over there, we came back, and the tour then continued from the North Island right down. And again, sadly, Sean fell ill at that point, and his health did deteriorate quite rapidly. We had actually had plans to go to Australia, but that didn't come to fruition because unfortunately he passed away. And of course that was completely gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching for me. And you know, I wanted to honour his legacy, honour Sean's legacy, because, you know, he was the first deaf actor, one of the first deaf actors here. You know, he was a phenomenal person in this capacity. He, you know, gone across the world, toured many different places, you know, being such a founder. And so that's kind of where Equal Voices kind of gave me that opportunity. Yes, I am kind of, from the language aspect, the consultant there, but I do lead together with Laura, and having that affinity and working together, actually, it's just like you find a family in that, you find yourself a home in that.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. I'm so disappointed to have missed that performance, because I read about it being the first, I think Sean was the first deaf actor on stage in Serbia ever, wasn't he? I think that was, you know, that's just an amazing thing. What an amazing experience.
Oh, huge national theatre, beautiful, and first time ever that the National Theatre got to opened its doors to the deaf community, so they could access a show. And when we finished the show, we came out, and Rachel and I were sat in the audience watching it all fill up, thinking, wow, you know, good house. And we walked out, and at the end of the show, and Sean walks out to this blitz of all of these people, you know, really keen to meet him and waving and pictures, and
like the Beatles, right?
like a superstar, you know. Just laughing.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was.
And actually, when we were kind of sitting there, we were kind of like hoping and praying that, you know, it would be okay. But when you looked around and saw everybody's faces, you know, you could see how many people were there, and it was just kind of making sure that people could, you know, relate to the show and enjoy it. And we were looking at all of their expressions and their reactions, but you could see that they totally fell in love with it. It was brilliant. It was so lovely to see and experience the feedback as well, and see the real reactions and see the impacts of that. And again, you know, people were saying, we really want more of this, we really want more of this. There was a big appetite for it.
I'm sure, and I hope that after people have saw that, they were inspired to kind of put on performances themselves. Perhaps local deaf people set up their own little groups. So, and perhaps that will come back again after COVID, right?
No.
So I'm really interested in. I was reading about Denise Armstrong and the fact that you'd worked with her. And she's a British deaf creative. She's from the UK, of course. And I believe she was showing you some BSL technical terms for theatre terms, and that you didn't have those equivalent specific technical theatre terms in New Zealand Sign Language. So from what I can understand, Rachel, you were kind of looking at those and kind of thinking about the integrity of signing in Aotearoa and how those signs could be adapted to New Zealand Sign Language. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
So in terms of before equal voices, there wasn't any specific glossary, vocab or anything that was assigned to this kind of arena of work at all. And we, alongside Denise as well, worked to kind of bring that to birth, really. We wanted to be able to look at how we could formulate linguistics around that, and it was looking at the meaning of these things and how we could use the language in that way. And it was an explorative process. So what we would do is we would look at our different ideas, see how that could resonate, see if that could be taken on board and was logical, and worked with it that way. So for example, in BSL, we sign, what is that, sorry? Energy. We sign energy.
Energy, that's right. Yeah.
When you talk about energy in the theatre space, this was the energy.
We use energy, or energy is another sign I've seen.
So also, yeah, we have two different signs that we use, yeah. And it just didn't seem right to use that sign in that way within the context that we wanted to in the theatre arena. So we came up with this sign as I'm doing it now. To do with the vibe and the way
it's similar to the dynamics, really, I suppose, isn't it? Dynamics, yeah.
Dynamic.
So
improvise.
Okay, so in terms of improvise, yeah. It's not anything to do with the sign, like improvement, for example. So what we had to do was look at that and explore it, and I did question that, and we looked at how we could do that and just decide the right morphology that we wanted to use. And so we came up with this as I'm doing now. Improvise.
Oh, that's lovely. What a beautiful sign.
And it's very creative. It shows that you're really,
you can see the creativity in it. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
We use this at Deaf Hearing Ensemble, improvise, because of that kind of ideas popping up, coming out from your gut, from your mind, instinct. Yeah.
When we started, there was just that word just wasn't in the vocabulary at all. So we like makeup, we were trying lots, but then there's time that when the hearing people step out of the space and we hand over to Rachel and any of the deaf participants in the space, and they have a meeting, corridor discussion about how they develop those signs, which is really amazing to watch those get birthed almost.
Yeah. Do you have any other examples for us, Rachel?
Yeah, as Laura said, yeah, it's really key that we keep the roots of our language alive when we're doing this. So there was a new
actor called Tora, and our new actor for Equal Voices is called Tora, sign name Tora.
Called Tora, and sorry,
German, first language, German Sign Language.
And
so for Rachel, she's the deaf representative and the NZSL consultant in the space.
So it sounds like you've met artists using BSL, artists using German Sign Language. You've had so many kind of, so much input, so much ability and opportunity to kind of consult with them and talk with them, and then to kind of consider your own native New Zealand Sign Language and think about the integrity of that language and what might develop from that.
So NZSL is in the same family, rooted in the same family of sign languages as BSL is. And there are some similarities between them both, especially in terms of Maori concept signs for Aotearoa. So I identify as Maori as well, and you know, the history, the culture, everything that comes with that, all the language and the nuances as well mean so much to me.
Am I right in my understanding that Maori Sign Language has been a kind of more recently emerged? Because when I was a child, people didn't really talk about that very much. That there were few signs for Maori concepts, you know. When we were at school, we learned about, you know, spoken Maori language, but not Maori signs.
Yeah, as you say, there isn't actually an official sign language for Maori, actually. It's actually something that's been, there's the concepts behind that. So, for example,
The Maori.
Is a concept that has been created and that we've assigned a sign to. Aotearoa is also another one. New Zealand Sign Language is another one, and it's all harked in the history.
I just love that sign, Aotearoa. Oh.
And it's to do with, you know, the community there use the same language, so the New Zealand Sign Language, but the Maori concepts do come into that if that's how they identify.
What makes NZSL so unique, I think, and yeah, Rachel's often said, you know, this is what makes, because they are part of the same family, NZSL, BSL, Auslan, but it's very culturally, linguistically unique, NZSL, and that's something that I needed to be incredibly mindful of and respectful of as a hearing Pākehā woman coming from England to New Zealand, and part of the ethics.
Pākehā was the word there, if anybody missed it.
Yeah, from European descent.
It's P-A-K-E-H-A, Pākehā.
And that was from an ethical perspective, that was one of my most important considerations, which is why I work so closely with Rachel. So I didn't want BSL to bleed into NZSL, for example. And yeah, we're trying to move this towards being a very deaf-led space. So yeah, this is all part of the process. It's kind of retaining the uniqueness of NZSL and leaving all of those decisions in the hands of the first language users. So I step way away to concentrate on, you know, directing actors, and Rachel does the rather massive job at being in linguistic and cultural control.
Wow. That's really interesting. Because I know, wow, that's amazing. So in theatre, we have the role of the BSL consultant here, which sounds pretty similar. So they feed back on the use of language, kind of slightly directorially with the actors, particularly if specific characters might, you know, use specific signs related to, you know, the time in which the play is set and so on. I've recently been talking to some American deaf people who say they have a role of DASL, which is Director of Arts and Sign Language. I think that is a beautiful title, right?
Very interesting.
And I think attaching the word director to the role really gives it the kind of status that it deserves, and places the deaf consultant alongside the hearing director.
Dramaturgy.
It's like dramaturgy, really, you know. And I think that's really, you know, because they are feeding back on the dramaturgy, aren't they? Really.
That's how we work really closely together. So Rachel's with me in rehearsal all the time, and Rachel is directing our hearing performers in particular, if they're signing. She's making those linguistic choices we were talking about, but also because we're kind of exploring with amplification of sign as we move into sign dance, as we play with the theatrical possibilities of working with sign language. That's where Rachel will come in and have very much of a directorial polished view. I mean, her eye for detail is incredible. My strong point, hence why, you know. And so we make a really, really good team. I do the overview, and she'll hone in with the detail polish.
That is how we work together, actually, and
often we'll have,
it works really well. And it's not necessarily that, you know, one of us is any better than the other. Actually, it's a bit more like a synergy. So we work together in parallel, equal, and that's how we accomplish what we do.
Which is beautiful. And often Rachel will be in kind of control of the kind of the deaf perspective and the kind of like the deaf dramaturgy, and I'll take care of the kind of the hearing dramaturgy. So that's how things weave together, which works really well.
It's a brilliant model, I think, of accessible theatre and inclusive theatre. And that brings me on to my next question rather neatly, actually, segues quite smoothly. Whenever I talk to people in Britain, I'm always really proud of being from New Zealand because, you know, Jacinda, the Prime Minister, always has an interpreter next to her. And there's been a real campaign in the UK recently about there being a lack of interpreter whenever there's been any announcements from the government. And deaf people have been very stressed. It's all over social media, hashtag, where is the interpreter? So there's a deaf person called Lynn who has been campaigning with the hashtag where is the interpreter and trying to put pressure on the government in the UK, and she's done an amazing job. But I always think New Zealand's so much better, and you know, New Zealand Sign Language was recognised as an official sign language, one of the 3 official languages in 2006, which is pretty amazing. So I feel in some ways New Zealand is so much, you know, so far in advance of where we are here in the UK in terms of access. But when we focus in specifically on theatre, I'm less sure about that because I rarely see deaf or disabled-led theatre coming out of New Zealand. So I'm interested in your perspective on that. Do you feel New Zealand has, well, what is happening with deaf and disabled theatre in New Zealand now? And also, what are your ambitions for the future? What are your hopes for the future of that in New Zealand?
I think we are very fortunate in that we do have access provided here for our community. Again, we have almost interpreters all across the country. So the only thing is that theatre itself is not as accessible. There are some very few interpreted performances, and there are some deaf actors, but it's rarely that things are performed in their first language. So aside from what we do here at Equal Voices Arts, there are other projects that we put on as well. We've been working with someone from the Maori community. It's with an actor named Sian, and his surname is like this.
Rachel's talking about a different project, not an Equal Voices project that we've just been working on in regard to sign interpreted shows. So I've been directing another piece with a young Maori artist called Sian, and we were making an NZSL interpreted version of this piece. So Rachel actually has been brought on as a director of interpretation. So instead of having the interpreter in the corner of the room, we've actually embedded them within the action creatively in the space. So you don't have to have that kind of split looking across and missing some of the action. So yeah, really good visibility for deaf audiences and hopefully much better connection.
That show will be
really
debuting this weekend, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So yeah, it will be nice to have a deaf-led show, so that we'll be having that this weekend. We'll be the first interpreter as part of the ensemble on stage, so we've got everybody coming to see that, and we're very much looking forward to that.
That is so exciting.
We're excited because that's a show that's been it's a show that I directed away from Equal Voices. It's with a hearing actor. It's with project, but being able to get the Equal Voices team to come on board with providing. I mean, we've not done this before because our work doesn't need interpretation. So it's been quite interesting to kind of work together as a team and have deaf leadership in that space of interpretation for deaf audiences. Has been really exciting. So yeah, that goes out for the first time on Saturday. Fingers crossed there's no changes in alert levels. But yeah, with
wow, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. When I go to when was the last time I went to the theatre? Last year, maybe more. I mean, it must have been March, before the first lockdown here, which is like a year ago. So you're talking about having interpreters shadowing the actors, working alongside the actors. And we've had quite a lot of that here in the UK. What, as a performer myself, and also as an interpreter, I have fulfilled that role in the past. But I think what I've started to see now is a shift towards actor interpreters. So they're not, they are qualified interpreters, but they actually have a role in the piece. You know, they are there as a character, they are there as a performer. And I think that works pretty well, actually. So does your show have interpreters who are also characters, perhaps?
No, this one is a one-woman show. And the main actor, Sian, she plays lots of different characters, and it's all done physically. It's a really simple space, so it's interesting to watch the two work together with the interpreter. So the interpreter's kind of shadowing, but there's moments where we've made it a little bit more creatively embedded, particularly with the role shifting, because obviously we're borrowing conventions from sign there, so we're being very respectful of that idea, and using it to create kind of much better access for deaf audiences with regard to interpreted work. But this is quite new for us, and like I say, Equal Voices doesn't work with interpretation.
I'm trying to get in there.
Just elbow her.
Yeah, I will. And this is the first kind of foray into how this would work. This is the first time actually that this will be happening on Saturday. So we are hoping that possibly there will be deaf people that could actually kind of do this actually in the future. This is the plan anyway.
The vision is to kind of train up deaf interpreters to be in that space. For this step, just because of funding and time, we had a hearing interpreter did the original translation, and then Rachel took the role of the director of interpretation, so she then would work closely with the interpreter, our wonderful interpreter Melissa, who you see a lot actually interpreting for Jacinda as well. So we're very lucky to have her. And so that's our wonderful team for this Saturday. We're excited.
I have to ask a really, really important question here. So the Prime Minister Jacinda, I mean, everyone in Britain is just like, we are just huge fans of her. Does she have a sign name?
Yeah, it's like this. Jacinda.
Jacinda.
Got a massive smile, hasn't
She
she?
does, yeah.
Beamed brightly. So this is her sign name.
Jacinda. Okay, that's perfect. I love that. It really suits her.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a little look through my list of prompt questions and just check that I've covered them. I think we're really keen to know what's next for the company, Equal Voices Arts, but also what's next for each of you. Do you have next steps, projects coming up? What's happening?
Well, like I said, we feel incredibly privileged at the moment to be able to make things and be in a space together. It's been quite a huge year for the world, obviously, and with our project Where Our Shadows Meet, we had planned this beautiful international project working with Denise Armstrong, who we talked about from the UK. She was meant to fly in, Rachel, myself, full deaf hearing team, and because of lockdown, plans changed. During that rehearsal process, we also had all our lockdowns here in New Zealand, so we had to jump onto Zoom and do Zoom rehearsals, which is not quite the same. Particularly felt sorry for Denise zooming in at 1 o'clock in the morning from England. Somehow that woman has such good energy.
That is commitment.
Yeah, you know, she's quite an amazing force of nature, that lady. So yeah, we just had to get creative and accept and let go of what we imagined it would be, which is kind of like the creative process anyway. So so yeah, we did, and it's taken a long time in fruition, but we were so proud to be able to premiere the piece in January to a full house here in Hamilton. Really emotional. It was a really emotional response, actually, and it hit us more than I expected it would. I think it was because there was a combination of the show itself is quite emotionally impactful, but also being able to be in an audience together and experience that together. We felt incredibly privileged. So we got to make this piece. So our immediate plans
we did.
for the future
I was just going to say, actually, the impact on the deaf community, they could really identify. It's almost just like it opened them up emotionally, actually, and meant that they could, recognize and see the honesty of how it related to them and their lives. How deaf people grow up and how the education system is, and societal things, where the access or lack of access, the barriers actually are in terms of using a visual language, sign language, and actually looking at the bridge between the deaf community and the hearing community. There's no kind of harm in looking at those things and actually experiencing it, but yeah, the impact was phenomenal, and people really had an appetite for it. So it does come down to kind of financing and funding. Sometimes we do have to kind of get that in order to be able to put these things on, but we are hopeful that we can get there.
Good news this week.
Just have a word with Jacinda.
Good news this week is that the piece, which is called Where Our Shadows Meet, we were invited to pitch at PANS, which is Performing Arts Network New Zealand. And it's the arts market here, but it also goes out internationally as well. And it's been all online this year, the pitches. So we pitched on Monday, NZSL leading the way, me and Siam voicing in the background for Rachel and Tora, who pitched the show on behalf of the company. And that was the first time a deaf and hearing theatre company has been pitching at that level here, which is super exciting. So the immediate plans are that we hope that other theatres will invite the performance to go and perform there.
Well, we'll keep our fingers
Yeah.
crossed for that too. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And what about individually? What's next for you as individuals?
For me, it would be hoping to train up, more deaf people, and also expansion in our work in terms of, the shows and everything. We really want to do that, raise awareness, build awareness amongst deaf and hearing audiences, actually, and just to unite the two. As well as that, of course, we would love to carry on with what we do in Equal Voices. I definitely couldn't step apart from that, because there's such a pool of inspiration from there that I couldn't ever step away from it. It's completely consuming in a positive way. So yeah, that means so much to me.
Dave?
Yep.
You said it better.
Did I?
I'm like, yeah, just more.
No.
We have actually we've been establishing more opportunities for to train the deaf community here. So with COVID, we actually provided some online masterclasses. We got to work with the amazing Jean St. Clair. Erin, you know Jean.
Oh, we all love Jean. We all love Jean. She's my favourite. Jean St. Clair has been my BSL consultant for TV when I was acting on TV, for theatre. And I was also in a theatre piece with her last year, just before lockdown, called The Process. I mean, it was one of my favourite shows, and I just love Jean St. Clair.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
Did brilliant work here, and again, always difficult because of the time differences. But yeah, and Denise ran a workshop. Denise has actually flown across here, so we've led full three-day masterclasses in sign theatre as well. So we're really hoping to provide more training opportunities, because there aren't that many here in New Zealand, and there are very few opportunities for deaf performers. So that's something that we're both really passionate about. So I hope we'll get more chances to provide that. And then, yeah, I think I'm just praying that things improve worldwide soon, and that we can go and see family and
yeah. I think we all want to go home. Yeah.
yeah. But in the meantime, I'm so grateful for things like this. This has been so beautiful. I've been wanting to meet Erin for so long, because I heard about we have lots of mutual friends. I was talking to an amazing mentor of mine, Kate O'Reilly. Erin, you've worked on one of her pieces.
Yes, yeah. I acted in a show called Peeling. Yeah.
That show. She's always been a huge inspiration. I met her working with Common Ground, and yeah, she's amazing. But yeah, I've heard so much about your work with the deaf and hearing theatre ensemble, and I've always reflected on our kind of opposite journeys and always felt like,
yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? You grew up in Britain, moved to New Zealand. I grew up in New Zealand, moved to Britain. Yeah, I mean,
I was just going to say, actually, of course, I do work in the education arena, as I said, but yeah, sometimes when I'm asked to kind of teach deaf children in context of theatre.
So that could be for an end of year school play, for instance, and it's really nice to be approached in that context and to see them up on stage at the end performing. Yeah, I really look forward to seeing that. It's great to see the development of their performances.
I remember, sorry.
I'm using my voice now. I'll go back to not doing that. I remember the first performance that I saw so long ago when I was small, that had sign language in it, had New Zealand sign language in it. And that was at the school at Nav Ash, where my sister went.
Ash,
Van Ash,
yeah.
where my sister went. And my mum worked there, my sister went to school there. And so I saw the performance there. And I remember, I can't remember what show it was, but I think it was maybe Christmas Carol or something like that. And I was just amazed. That it was like my first experience. I just loved it. It was just, yeah, amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yes, when I was growing up, there wasn't any theatre like that either. There were only interpreters on stage during the storytelling. There weren't any live theatre performances like we have now back then.
Well, unfortunately, we are going to run out of time shortly. So I'd like to thank you both so much. But before we wind up, I just want to do a little quick fire round, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of choices, this or this, and you have got to follow your gut instinct and respond as quickly as you can. Go with your first response, okay? Some questions have a little bit of a New Zealand flavour to them, just to warn you about that, and just to warn the audience who might not be aware of those New Zealand specific things. So are you ready? Okay, we're going to start simple here. So theatre, both of you, please.
Both of us, there you go.
Okay, but we do need rules. Okay, so Rachel first, then Laura. Okay, that's how it's going to work. And then take it in turns like that, all right?
Okay, yes, me first.
Right, okay, let's go. Are we ready? Theatre or film? Theatre or film?
Theatre.
Okay.
Sorry, always theatre.
Because it's the real life aspect of it.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's just more fascinating. On film, you know, I don't know if that's real or fantasy, but when you're watching it, you're seeing it all in 3D right before your eyes.
Face to face, yeah. And that connection that you feel with live performance, yeah. Okay, next question then. So I'm just going to let the audience know this is a drink. So L&P or Coke?
My favourite L&P. I'm going for L&P.
Yay! The Aotearoa option, yeah.
I feel like I'm letting New Zealand down, but I don't like L&P.
She's going to go for Coke.
Coke for me.
You're going to go for Coke. Oh,
yeah, boo.
Yeah, boo to that. And actually, sorry, I'm not being rude when I'm saying this. I'm saying Coke. I know in BSL this is something completely different. I should
that's a different sign in BSL. No.
New Zealand sign, Coke. Yes, this is what we sign for Coke. I know, it's very different. So you ask for a Coke exactly like that. I know in the UK, in England, that a very different kind of Coke.
We don't use that.
It's a little rude, that sign
yeah, actually,
here.
Not. Maybe we should edit this part out, actually.
No, I think we should keep that in. Okay, moving on to next question, though. This is not anything to do with theatre. Ski or swim?
Oh, swim.
Okay.
Then swim for me because I broke my ribs the first time I went skiing.
And I can't ski because I always kind of can't get the skis in the right way. They always just cross over each other, so I never get anywhere. So it's swimming for me. Swimming's much more relaxing. It's a bit, you can switch off and just swim away, and yeah, it's more therapeutic.
Dangerous post.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps not then. Yeah. Okay. Sleep or dance?
Oh, dance.
Yay! Yeah, party.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just more, sleep. I mean, what does that mean anyway?
Some people actually like sleep. Some people like it.
No, dancing, you get a good feeling.
Okay, then.
Which did you pick?
Sleep as well.
Okay, so maybe both. Sleep dancing.
Not sleepwalking.
Go. No. You'll fall over if you do sleep dancing, actually. No.
Sounds a bit risky.
We can't sleep and dance at the same time. That's not quite possible. So, yeah, you'd be all over the place, wouldn't you?
Okay.
It's interesting to explore that, actually, in a performance.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's true.
Magic.
Okay, I'm going to come to the last one. Guys, last question. And this is about biscuits. And how do you sign that in New Zealand Sign Language?
Biscuits or biscuits like this. You've got two options.
Okay. So I'm going to fingerspell those because I don't know the signs for these particular biscuits, but I'm going to ask you whether you would prefer Tim Tams or Toffee Pops.
Tim Tams for me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love the kind of, the melty bit inside of the Tim Tam. I absolutely love that, actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and if you've got chocolate on, the coffee, sorry, on milk.
In the mug, yeah.
Tim Tam in that. Oh, it's brilliant stuff.
Yep, you're right.
I love them.
Pops for me.
Toffee Pops. Oh, typical you, Toffee Pops. You just eat them and that's it. Tim Tams, there's so much flavour and, you've got soft bits and you've got all sorts of Tim Tam.
I like both. When I was 21 and I moved to Melbourne in Australia, and my mum visited me and she would always bring me like so many Tim Tams and Toffee Pops, like 10 packets, just stacked up. I'd get this, delivery. It was great. Yeah, New Zealand has the best food. But anyway.
I agree with Erin. Sorry, no, I didn't say that. No, I do like some food from the UK, and I did want to bring that here, but no, that's not allowed.
What food?
It was the pasta. It was beautiful. And I really wanted to bring it over here. And I did try it here, but it just didn't have the same taste. So yeah, it didn't have the same flavour, but that was a shame. Couldn't bring it over.
New Zealand does have very strict import regulations, right? Particularly around food, and you'd get yourself in trouble. You get fined.
Yeah, you would.
Anyway, folks, sadly, we're going to have to bring this session to an end. We are running out of time. It's caught up with us, but I'd really like to thank you both so much. Thank you for your interesting responses. I'd like to thank the interpreters, Anna, Kyra and Rebekah. Well done, folks. I know there's been quite a lot of technical hitches, but you have pulled it off. Well done, guys.
I really want to say thank you to your interpreters, or however you sign interpreters, for being able to interpret my sign language, the mixture of my language.
Yeah, interpreter, nice signs. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I like that sign, interpreter. Anyway.
And thank you, Erin, as well. Thank you to you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to everybody watching and listening in our audience. I'd like to remind you that you can join in the conversation at #thegreenroom_UK. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, if you want to talk about your favorite biscuits, however you want to sign that, join in. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guests: Laura Haughey and Rachel Fahey. Host: Erin Siobhan Hutching. Interpreters: Kyra Pollitt, Anna Kitson and Rebekah Spencer. Music: Road Trips, Off Shane. The Green Room, a video podcast produced by Strive, a collective made up of the DH Ensemble and Hot Coals Productions. You can find all the videos and audio recordings of this series at www.strivecollective.org/the #green-room. Twitter @strivecollective with no E. #thegreenroom_UK. Celebrating best practice, spotlighting unsung heroes, inspiring action. Logos for Strive, Hot Coals Productions and the DH Ensemble, supported using public funding by Arts Council England.